Part 1, Ashes to Ashes. The warehouse district burned with a fire that could be seen from 3 boroughs away. Victoria Kang stood in the center of the inferno's origin point, her Valentino coat untouched by ash, her posture perfect despite the chaos erupting around her. Emergency vehicles screamed in the distance, but they would arrive too late, always too late when the Kang family wanted something done. The flames reflected in her dark eyes, twin pyres of judgment that had been 3 months in the making. A world she burned down in the most efficient way. Brick by brick, she calculated every ruin not because she wanted to, but because she needed to. She needed everyone that underestimated her family to pay the price. Victoria wanted to send a message so far and wide that no one would question the Kang family reach again. Behind her, the CHEN family's primary distribution center collapsed in on itself with a groan of surrendering steel. To her left, federal agents were already swarming the REYES family's political headquarters, armed with enough evidence to dismantle a corruption network that had strangled the city for 2 decades. And somewhere across the harbor, Marcus Kane was discovering that every account, every holding, every dirty dollar he'd ever hidden had been frozen, seized, or redistributed to the families his loan sharks had destroyed. 3 empires, 3 months, 1 woman. Victoria's hand rested on the gentle swell of her belly, almost 6 months now, and the baby kicked as if celebrating their mother's victory. She allowed herself the smallest smile, something sharp and satisfied that would have made weaker men step back. Mrs. Kang, Ninjae approached from the shadows, his suit immaculate despite the night's work. Juhoon's right hand, her partner in this elaborate dance of destruction. It's done. All of it. I know, Victoria said softly, her voice carrying despite the roar of flames. I can feel it. The city had underestimated her. They'd seen the grieving widow, the trophy wife, the woman who'd sobbed over her husband's body in the middle of 7th Avenue. They'd thought her broken. They'd been catastrophically wrong. Victoria turned from the fire, her heels clicking against concrete as she walked toward the waiting car. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, and she pressed her palm against the movement. Let's go home, she said. He's waiting for us. But to understand how Victoria Kang had burned 3 criminal empires to the ground, you had to go back. Back to before the fire. Back to before the blood. Back to the moment when everything changed. Back to 6 months earlier, when Victoria Kang had been the happiest she'd ever been in her life. 6 months earlier. Part 2, the beginning. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and hope. Victoria sat on the examination table, her legs swinging slightly, a nervous habit she'd never quite broken despite years of cultivating an image of perfect composure. Dr. Sarah CHEN, no relation to those CHENs, thank God, was reviewing her chart with the kind of focused attention that made Victoria's heart race. 2 years. They'd been trying for 2 years. Victoria had never been someone who failed at things. She'd graduated summa cum laude from Columbia with a double major in business and international relations. She spoke 4 languages fluently. She'd taken her father's struggling import company and turned it into a multi-million-dollar enterprise before she was 30. She'd negotiated deals with men who thought women belonged in the bedroom, not the boardroom, and she'd made them respect her. But she couldn't make her body do this one thing. This one simple, biological thing that humans had been doing since the dawn of time. Until maybe now. Dr. CHEN looked up, and Victoria saw it immediately, the slight upturn of her lips, the softening around her eyes. Victoria, Dr. CHEN said, setting down the chart. You're pregnant. The world tilted. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but feel the overwhelming surge of joy that threatened to crack her chest open. Are you sure? Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended, vulnerable in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. Completely sure. About 6 weeks along. All your levels look excellent. Strong heartbeat on the ultrasound. Dr. CHEN smiled warmly. Congratulations. Victoria pressed both hands against her still flat stomach, as if she could feel the tiny life already growing there. A baby. Our baby. I need to. She slid off the table, suddenly energized, her mind already racing ahead. I need to tell Juhoon. Tonight. I need to plan. Dr. Chen laughed. Take a breath, Victoria. You have time. But yes, definitely tell your husband. I imagine he'll be thrilled. Thrilled didn't begin to cover what Juhoon would be. Victoria knew her husband, knew the way his eyes softened when he saw children in the park, the way he'd pause at baby stores with a longing he thought she didn't notice. He wanted this as much as she did, maybe more. Victoria left the clinic in a daze, her mind spinning with possibilities. How would she tell him? She needed it to be perfect, memorable. This was the moment they'd been waiting for, praying for, hoping for through every negative test and every disappointed month. She pulled out her phone as she slid into the back of her car, her fingers trembling slightly as she typed. Dinner tonight? Just us. I have something important to tell you. I love you. The response came almost immediately. Juhoon was in back-to-back meetings all day, but he always made time for her. Anything for you. 8 p.m. at Maria? I love you more. Victoria smiled, pressing the phone against her chest. Maria was their restaurant, where he'd proposed 4 years ago, getting down on one knee between the pasta course and dessert, his hands shaking and his voice rough with emotion, where they'd celebrated every anniversary since. Perfect. She spent the rest of the afternoon in a blur of preparation. She went home to their penthouse overlooking Central Park, the space they designed together, his modern aesthetic blending with her love of warmth and texture. She showered, taking extra care, using the perfume he loved. She chose a dress in deep emerald green, the color he always said made her eyes look like they held secrets. She did hold a secret now, the best secret in the world. Victoria stood in front of the mirror, studying her reflection. She looked the same sharp cheekbones, same full lips, same thick dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders. But she felt different, transformed. She was going to be a mother. She and Juhoon were going to be parents. She pressed her hand against her stomach again, a gesture she suspected would become habit. Hi, baby, she whispered. I'm your mom. And tonight, you're going to meet your dad. Well, not meet him exactly, but he's going to find out about you. And he's going to love you so much. We both already do. Her phone buzzed. A text from Juhoon. Meeting running late. Might be 8:15. Sorry, my love. This board is being difficult. Victoria smiled and typed back, take your time. I'll wait forever for you. It was true. She would wait forever for Juhoon Kang. From the moment they'd met at a business conference in Seoul, her trying to expand her father's company into Asian markets, him already a rising star in his family's empire, she'd known he was different. He looked at her like she was the only person in the room. He'd asked about her business, her goals, her dreams. He listened when she talked, really listened, his dark eyes focused and intent. Their courtship had been a whirlwind. 3 months of flying between New York and Seoul, of late-night video calls and stolen weekends. 6 months before he'd asked her to marry him. A year before the wedding that had united two powerful families and created something even stronger. The Kang family business was complicated. Victoria wasn't naive. She knew that Juhoon's empire contained murky dealings, that his influence extended into places polite society didn't discuss. But she also knew his heart, knew that he was working to legitimize the family holdings, to transform his grandfather's criminal enterprise into something legal, something their children could be proud of. Their children. Victoria checked her watch. 7:30, time to head to the restaurant. She grabbed her clutch, took one last look in the mirror, and headed for the elevator. The doorman, Lucas, smiled as she passed. You look radiant tonight, Mrs. Kang. Thank you, Lucas. She beamed at him, unable to contain her joy. It's a special night. The drive to Maria took 20 minutes through evening traffic. Victoria spent the time imagining Juhoon's reaction. Would he cry? He'd cried at their wedding, tears streaming down his face as she walked down the aisle. Would he laugh? Pick her up and spin her around? Would he press his hand against her stomach, trying to feel something that was still too small to detect? She was smiling as the car pulled up to the restaurant, already anticipating the moment when she'd tell him, when she'd watch his face transform with the same joy that was currently making her feel like she could float. Her phone rang. Juhoon's name flashed on the screen. "Hi," she answered, her voice warm. "Are you close?" "I just got here." "Victoria." His voice was wrong. Tight. Strained. "Victoria, something's happened." Her smile faded. "What? What's wrong?" The meeting, it wasn't just difficult. There was an argument. About the Riverside project. CHEN, REYES, and Kang, they're pushing back on my decision to delay. They're saying, a screech of tires. A shout. The sickening crunch of metal on metal. "Juhoon." Victoria's voice rose. "Juhoon." The line went dead. Victoria's hands shook as she redialed. Nothing. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. 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 "Mrs. Kang." Her driver, David, turned around, concern etched on his face. "Is everything all right?" "Drive," she said, her voice sharp with panic. "Drive to Kang Enterprises. Now." David didn't question her. He pulled into traffic, weaving between cars with the kind of aggressive driving he usually avoided. Victoria's phone rang, an unknown number. "Hello." "Mrs. Kang." A male voice, official. "This is Officer Rodriguez with the NYPD. There's been an incident involving your husband. You need to come to the corner of 7th Avenue and 42nd Street immediately." The phone slipped from her hand. No. "Change of plans," she told David, her voice hollow. 7th and 42nd. The drive took an eternity and no time at all. Victoria sat frozen in the back seat, her mind refusing to process what was happening. This was supposed to be the best night of their lives. She was supposed to be telling him about the baby. They were supposed to be celebrating. This couldn't be happening. The scene that greeted her was chaos. Police cars, ambulances, their lights painting the street in alternating red and blue. A crowd of onlookers held back by yellow tape. And in the middle of the street, surrounded by paramedics. "Juhoon." Victoria was out of the car before David had fully stopped, running in heels she'd chosen to look beautiful for her husband, ducking under the police tape before anyone could stop her. "Ma'am, you can't." "That's my husband." She shoved past an officer, her eyes locked on the figure on the ground. Juhoon lay in the middle of 7th Avenue, his suit torn and bloodied, his face pale in the harsh streetlights. Paramedics worked over him with urgent efficiency, but Victoria could see how bad it was. "Juhoon." She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands hovering over his body, afraid to touch him, afraid she'd hurt him more. "Juhoon, I'm here. I'm here, baby." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy with pain. "Victoria. Don't talk. Don't try to talk. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine." Tears streamed down her face, hot and fast. "You have to be fine." "Ma'am, we need to get him to the hospital." A paramedic tried to pull her back. "No." Victoria gripped Juhoon's hand, feeling how cold it was, how weak his grip. "Juhoon, listen to me. You can't die. Do you hear me? You can't die because. She leaned close, pressing her forehead against his, her tears falling onto his face. "Because I'm pregnant," she whispered. "We're having a baby. Our baby. So you have to fight. You have to live. For me. For us. For our child." Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, joy, determination. His lips moved, forming words she couldn't hear over the chaos around them. "I love you," she said, squeezing his hand. "I love you so much. Stay with me. Please stay with me." The paramedics were lifting him onto a stretcher, and Victoria tried to follow, but someone held her back. "Mrs. Kang, you can't ride in the ambulance. Follow us to Mount Sinai. We'll take care of him." Victoria watched them load Juhoon into the ambulance, watched the doors close, watched the vehicle pull away with lights and sirens screaming into the night. She stood in the middle of 7th Avenue, her emerald dress stained with her husband's blood, her perfect evening shattered into 1,000 pieces. And then she saw him. Min-jae, Juhoon's right hand, his most trusted advisor, standing at the edge of the crowd. Their eyes met, and Victoria saw something in his expression that cut through her panic, something cold and calculating and knowing. He moved toward her, and when he spoke, his voice was low enough that only she could hear. "Mrs. Kang, we need to talk. Now." Part 3. The Truth. The hospital waiting room was sterile and cold, fluorescent lights humming overhead like angry insects. Victoria sat with her hands folded in her lap, her back straight despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. She'd been here for 6 hours. 6 hours of waiting, of pacing, of demanding updates from nurses who had nothing to tell her. Min-jae sat beside her, silent and solid. He'd driven her here, had stayed with her through every agonizing minute. Now, as dawn began to lighten the sky outside, he finally spoke. It wasn't an accident. Victoria's head snapped toward him. What? The attack on Mr. Kang. It wasn't an accident. Minji's jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists. It was coordinated, professional. They wanted him dead. The words should have shocked her, should have sent her reeling. But Victoria found that some part of her had already known. The timing was too convenient. The violence too extreme. Who? Her voice was steady, cold. A tone she'd learned from years of business negotiations, from dealing with men who thought they could intimidate her. We're not sure yet, but I have suspicions. Min-jae pulled out his phone, showing her a series of photos. The board meeting today, it was about the Riverside Development Project. Mr. Kang discovered something. Contamination in the soil. Industrial waste that was never properly cleaned up. He wanted to delay the project, do it right, even though it would cost millions. And the other families didn't want to wait. Victoria finished, her mind already racing ahead. CHEN, REYES, and Kang. They've all invested heavily in Riverside. They stood to lose a fortune if the project was delayed. Minji's expression was grim. I think they decided to remove the obstacle. Victoria's hand moved to her stomach, a protective gesture that was already becoming instinctive. They tried to kill my husband because he wanted to do the right thing. Yes. A doctor emerged from the surgical wing, and Victoria was on her feet instantly. Mrs. Kang. Yes. How is he? Is he? He's alive, the doctor said, and Victoria's knees nearly buckled with relief. But his condition is critical. The next 48 hours will be crucial. He sustained severe internal injuries, and there's swelling in his brain. We've induced a coma to give his body time to heal. Can I see him? Soon. We're getting him settled in the ICU. The doctor's expression softened. Mrs. Kang, I want you to prepare yourself. Even if he survives, there may be permanent damage. We won't know the extent until he wakes up. If he wakes up. The doctor didn't say it, but Victoria heard it anyway. I understand, she said quietly. Thank you. The doctor left, and Victoria sank back into her chair. Min-jae was watching her carefully, and she could see the question in his eyes. What are you thinking, Mrs. Kang? Victoria was quiet for a long moment, her mind working through possibilities, through scenarios, through the cold calculus of revenge and justice. I'm thinking, she said slowly, that they made a mistake. What kind of mistake? They assumed I was weak, that I was just Juhoon's wife, his pretty accessory. They thought that with him gone, the Kang Empire would crumble. Victoria's eyes were hard, glittering with something dangerous. They were wrong. Min-jae leaned forward. What do you want to do? I want to destroy them, Victoria said simply. All of them. CHEN, REYES, Kang, everyone who had a hand in this. I want to take everything they have and burn it to the ground. That's a dangerous path, Mrs. Kang. I don't care. She turned to face him fully. Min-jae, I need to know, are you with me? Will you help me? Min-jae had served the Kang family for 15 years. He'd been Juhoon's friend, his advisor, his protector. And now, looking at Victoria's determined face, he saw something of Juhoon in her, that same steel core, that same unwillingness to back down. I'm with you, he said. Whatever you need. Good. Victoria stood, smoothing down her ruined dress. Then here's what we're going to do. We're going to let them think they won. I don't understand. Juhoon is in critical condition. The doctors aren't sure he'll survive. Victoria's voice was steady, clinical. So we're going to tell everyone he didn't. We're going to stage his death. Minji's eyes widened. Mrs. Kang. Think about it. If they believe he's dead, they'll get comfortable. They'll think they're safe. They'll start making mistakes. Victoria began to pace, her mind working through the details. We'll hold a funeral. I'll play the grieving widow. And while they're celebrating their victory, we'll be gathering evidence. Building a case. Finding every weakness, every vulnerability. And then we'll strike. All at once. We'll take them down so completely that they'll never recover. Victoria's smile was sharp and cold. They wanted to destroy the Kang family. Instead, they're going to learn what happens when you underestimate a Kang wife. Min-jae was quiet for a moment, processing the audacity of the plan. Then, slowly, he smiled. Mr. Kang chose well when he married you. I know. Victoria's expression softened slightly. But Min-jae, this only works if Juhoon survives. If he actually dies. He won't, Min-jae said firmly. He's too stubborn. And now he has even more reason to fight. Victoria's hand moved to her stomach again. Yes, he does. A nurse appeared. Mrs. Kang, you can see your husband now, but only for a few minutes. Victoria followed the nurse through sterile corridors to the ICU. Nothing could have prepared her for the sight of Juhoon in that hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beeped and hummed, his face pale and still, his strong body looking suddenly fragile. She pulled a chair close to his bed and took his hand, careful of the IV line. Hi, baby, she whispered. I'm here. I'm right here. The machines beeped steadily, the only indication that he was still alive. I told Min-jae the plan. We're going to fake your death, and then we're going to destroy everyone who did this to you. She squeezed his hand gently. I know you can hear me. I know you're in there, fighting. So keep fighting, okay? Fight for me. Fight for our baby. She leaned close, pressing a kiss to his forehead. I love you, Juhoon Kang. And I'm going to make them pay for what they did to you. I promise. Part 4. The Performance. The funeral of Juhoon Kang was a spectacle. Victoria had spared no expense, had orchestrated every detail with the precision of a military campaign. The service was held at St. Patrick's Cathedral, the Gothic architecture providing a suitably dramatic backdrop. Hundreds of mourners filled the pews, business associates, family members, politicians, and representatives from every major organization in the city. And in the front row, dressed in black Chanel with a veil covering her face, sat Victoria Kang. She played her part perfectly. The grieving widow, devastated by the loss of her husband. She wept at the appropriate moments, her shoulders shaking with sobs that were only partially manufactured. Because even though Juhoon was alive, hidden in a private facility under Minji's protection, the grief was real. The fear that he might never wake up, that their child might never know their father, that fear was genuine. But beneath the grief was something harder, something cold and calculating. Victoria watched through her veil as the other families paid their respects. Marcus Kane, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expression appropriately somber. Elena Reyes, dripping in diamonds even at a funeral, her political smile firmly in place. And David CHEN, young and ambitious, barely hiding his satisfaction behind a mask of sympathy. They thought they'd won. Mrs. Kang, Marcus Kane approached after the service, taking her hand in both of his. I'm so sorry for your loss. Juhoon was a good man, a visionary. Thank you, Victoria said softly, her voice breaking just enough to sound authentic. It's been so difficult. I can only imagine. Kane's grip tightened slightly. If there's anything I can do, anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. The Kang family has always been important to us. Liar, Victoria thought. You tried to kill him. That's very kind, she said instead. Actually, there is something. The Riverside project, Juhoon was so invested in it. I'd like to continue his work, see it through. Would you be willing to meet with me next week to discuss the details? She saw the flash of surprise in Kane's eyes, quickly hidden. Of course. I'd be honored to help you navigate the business side of things. It can be complicated for someone without experience. Someone without experience. Victoria wanted to laugh. She'd been running her own company since she was 25. But she kept her expression meek, grateful. Thank you so much. I'm sure I'll need a lot of guidance. Elena Reyes was next, her perfume overwhelming as she pulled Victoria into an embrace. Darling, you must be devastated. Juhoon was such a force. I can't imagine how you'll manage without him. I'm not sure I can, Victoria admitted, letting her voice waver. Everything feels so overwhelming. The business, the decisions, I don't know where to start. Well, you have friends, Reyes said, her smile sharp. Friends who can help you make the right choices. In fact, I was thinking perhaps it would be best to sell some of the Kang holdings. Consolidate. Make things simpler for you. That might be wise, Victoria said, playing into exactly what Reyes wanted to hear. I'll need to think about it. David CHEN was the most transparent. He didn't even bother with false sympathy, just got straight to business. Mrs. Kang, I know this is a difficult time, but we need to discuss Riverside. The project can't be delayed any longer. The investors are getting nervous. I understand, Victoria said, but surely we can wait a few weeks? I've just buried my husband. Of course, of course. Chen's smile didn't reach his eyes. But not too long. Time is money, as they say. Victoria watched them all leave, these vultures circling what they thought was a wounded animal. Minjae appeared at her elbow once the cathedral had emptied. You were magnificent, he said quietly. They bought it completely. Victoria lifted her veil, her eyes dry now, sharp with focus. They think I'm a helpless widow who'll be easy to manipulate. What's the next step? Now we dig. I want to know everything about their operations. Every account, every deal, every dirty secret. Victoria's voice was hard. And Minjae? I want to visit Juhoon. I need to see him. They drove to the private facility in Westchester, a converted estate that looked like a luxury home from the outside, but functioned as a state-of-the-art medical center. Juhoon had been moved here 3 days after the attack, officially dead to the world, but very much alive. Victoria entered his room, and her heart clenched at the sight of him. Still unconscious, still connected to machines, but stable. The doctors said his brain swelling had gone down. That was good. That was progress. She pulled a chair close and took his hand. Hi, baby. I just came from your funeral. It was beautiful. You would have hated it. Too much fuss. She smiled slightly. Everyone thinks you're dead. Kane, Reyes, CHEN, they're all circling, trying to figure out how to carve up your empire. Our empire. She pressed his hand against her stomach, which was just starting to show a small bump. The baby's growing. I'm almost 2 months now. The doctor says everything looks perfect. Her voice softened. I wish you could be awake for this. I wish you could see the ultrasound. But you're going to wake up. I know you are. You're too stubborn not to. The machines beeped steadily, and Victoria let herself have this moment of vulnerability. Here, alone with her husband, she didn't have to be strong. Didn't have to be calculating. She could just be a woman who missed her partner, who was terrified and determined in equal measure. I'm going to destroy them, she whispered. Everyone who did this to you. I'm going to take everything they have and burn it down. And when you wake up, it'll all be over. We'll be safe. Our baby will be safe. She stayed for an hour, talking to him about her plans, about the baby, about everything and nothing. When she finally left, Minjae was waiting in the hallway. Ready to get to work? He asked. More than ready, Victoria said. Let's take them down. Part 5. The Investigation. Victoria threw herself into the investigation with the same intensity she'd once applied to building her business empire. She moved into Juhoon's office at Kang Enterprises, a space she'd visited countless times but never truly occupied. Now, sitting behind his massive desk, she began to understand the full scope of what her husband had built and what the other families wanted to destroy. Minjae became her partner in every sense. He brought her files, introduced her to Juhoon's network of informants and allies, taught her the unspoken rules of the world her husband had navigated for years. The key to understanding the families, Minjae explained one night as they pored over documents in Juhoon's office, is understanding what they value most. For CHEN, it's control. He runs the ports, the shipping lanes, the trade routes. Everything flows through him. So if we cut off his control, we cut off his power, Victoria said, making notes. Exactly. For REYES, it's influence. She's spent decades building political connections, buying judges, manipulating the system. She's untouchable because she owns the people who are supposed to enforce the law. Then we need to expose her. Make her connections a liability instead of an asset. And Kane. Min-jae pulled up a file on his laptop. Kane is all about money. Gambling, loan sharking, money laundering. He's got his fingers in every dirty pot in the city. So we drain his accounts. Make him broke. Victoria smiled coldly. I like it. Over the next 2 months, Victoria became intimately familiar with every aspect of the three families' operations. She met with Juhoon's accountants, his lawyers, his security team. She learned about shell corporations and offshore accounts, about blackmail and bribery, about the intricate web of corruption that held the city's underworld together. And she learned about the Riverside Project. It's worse than we thought, Min-jae said, spreading out environmental reports across the desk. The contamination isn't just industrial waste. It's toxic, carcinogenic. If they'd built on that land without proper cleanup, people would have gotten sick. Died, probably. Victoria felt sick herself, thinking about it. And they knew. All three families knew, and they were going to build anyway. Juhoon found out 2 days before the attack. He was going to go public, force a proper environmental assessment. Minji's expression was grim. That's why they tried to kill him. Then that's where we start, Victoria decided. We use Riverside against them. But we need more. We need evidence that ties all three families to the attack on Juhoon. That evidence came from an unexpected source. Victoria was meeting with one of Juhoon's informants, a nervous man named Tommy who worked in CHEN's shipping operation, when he mentioned something that made her blood run cold. There was a meeting, Tommy said, glancing around the empty parking garage where they'd arranged to meet. About 3 weeks ago. CHEN, REYES, and Kane all together. That never happens. They hate each other. What did they discuss? Victoria asked, keeping her voice calm despite her racing heart. I don't know exactly, but I heard CHEN on the phone afterward. He said something about the Kang problem being handled, that they'd removed the obstacle. Victoria's hands clenched into fists. Can you testify to that? Are you kidding? They'd kill me. What if I could guarantee your protection? What if I could make sure you and your family were safe? Tommy looked at her for a long moment. Mrs. Kang, with all due respect, you're one woman. How are you going to protect me from 3 of the most powerful families in the city? Victoria smiled, and there was something in that smile that made Tommy take a step back. Because I'm not just one woman, she said softly. I'm a Kang, and the Kangs don't lose. She convinced Tommy to wear a wire to his next meeting with CHEN. The recording he brought back was gold, CHEN discussing the attack on Juhoon, laughing about how the grieving widow would be easy to manipulate, planning how to divide up the Kang assets. This is it, Min-jae said, listening to the recording for the 3rd time. This is enough to bring him down. It's a start, Victoria agreed. But I want more. I want all of them. And I want it to be devastating. She began to formulate a plan, something intricate and beautiful in its complexity. She would take down each family in a way that was perfectly tailored to destroy what they valued most. For CHEN, she would dismantle his control. For REYES, she would expose her influence. For Kane, she would drain his money. And she would do it all simultaneously, so they couldn't warn each other, couldn't mount a defense, couldn't escape. But first, she needed to continue playing her part. Victoria attended meetings with all 3 families, playing the confused widow who needed guidance. She asked naive questions, made suggestions that seemed foolish, allowed them to condescend to her. And all the while, she was gathering information, identifying weaknesses, building her case. You're a natural at this, Min-jae observed after a particularly successful meeting with REYES where Victoria had gotten the woman to inadvertently reveal the names of 3 judges on her payroll. I've been underestimated my entire life, Victoria said. I've learned to use it as a weapon. At night, she would visit Juhoon, updating him on her progress, even though he couldn't respond. I met with CHEN today. She told him one evening, holding his hand. He actually patted me on the head, like I was a child. I wanted to break his fingers. The machines beeped steadily, and Victoria imagined she felt Juhoon's hand twitch in hers. The baby's doing well. I'm starting to show now. I have to wear loose clothes to hide it. I don't want them to know. Don't want them to see any vulnerability. She pressed his hand against her growing belly. But I wish you could feel this. Feel our baby growing. Our little fighter. She was 4 months pregnant now, and the baby was becoming more real every day. She'd had another ultrasound, had seen the tiny hands and feet, the perfect profile. The doctor had asked if she wanted to know the sex, but Victoria had said no. That was something she wanted to find out with Juhoon. You need to wake up soon, she whispered. I can't do this without you. I mean, I can, I will, but I don't want to. I want you here. I want us to be a family. As if in response, Juhoon's fingers twitched. Actually, unmistakably twitched. Victoria's breath caught. Juhoon? Baby, can you hear me? His eyelids fluttered. Just slightly, just for a moment, but it was movement. Real movement. Victoria hit the call button for the nurse, her heart pounding. He moved. His hand moved, and his eyes. The doctor came quickly, checking Juhoon's vitals, shining a light in his eyes. This is good, Mrs. Kang. Very good. It means he's starting to come out of the coma. It could be days or weeks, but he's fighting his way back. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face, relief and joy overwhelming her carefully maintained control. He's going to be okay? I can't make promises, but this is the best sign we've had. The doctor smiled. Keep talking to him. I think he can hear you. After the doctor left, Victoria leaned close to Juhoon, pressing her forehead against his. You're coming back to me, she whispered. I knew you would. I knew you were too stubborn to leave us. She stayed until dawn, talking to him about everything, the plan, the baby, how much she loved him. And when she finally left to go back to the city, to continue her performance as the helpless widow, she felt renewed, strengthened. Juhoon was coming back. And when he woke up, she would have destroyed everyone who'd tried to take him from her. Part 6. The Takedown, CHEN. Victoria struck at the CHEN family first. David CHEN controlled the ports. Every shipping container that came into the city went through his operation. It was a massive empire built on legitimate business fronted by illegal activities. Smuggling mostly. Drugs, weapons, people. The legitimate shipping business provided perfect cover. Victoria's plan was elegant in its simplicity. She would use CHEN's own control against him. The key, she explained to Min Jae, is that CHEN's power comes from his ability to move things without detection. He's paid off customs officials, port authorities, even federal agents. But what if we made his operation too visible to ignore? How? Victoria smiled. We're going to make sure every illegal shipment he is coming in gets flagged. All at once. And we're going to make sure the media is there to see it. It took a week to set up. Victoria used Juhoon's contacts in law enforcement, the honest ones, the ones who'd been trying to build a case against CHEN for years, but never had enough evidence. She gave them everything, shipping manifests, payoff records, the names of every corrupt official on CHEN's payroll. This is incredible, Detective Sarah Morrison said, looking through the files Victoria had provided. This is enough to bring down his entire operation. But Mrs. Kang, how did you get all this? My husband kept very detailed records, Victoria said smoothly. He was planning to go to the authorities before he died. I'm just finishing what he started. The trap was set for a Tuesday morning. CHEN had 3 major shipments coming in, one containing weapons, one containing drugs, and one containing women being trafficked from Eastern Europe. Victoria had made sure that federal agents, customs officials, and half a dozen news crews would be there to witness the seizure. She watched from a distance as it all unfolded, standing on a rooftop overlooking the port with Min Jae beside her. There, Min Jae said, pointing to the first container being opened. Even from this distance, they could see the chaos that erupted, agents swarming, cameras flashing, Chen's men being led away in handcuffs. Victoria's phone rang. It was Chen, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. What did you do? I don't know what you mean, Victoria said innocently. Is something wrong? You set me up. You. Mr. Chen, I'm just a grieving widow trying to run her late husband's business. I have no idea what you're talking about. Victoria's voice hardened. But if I were you, I'd be more concerned about the federal agents who are probably on their way to your office right now. I hear they have warrants. Lots of warrants. She hung up before he could respond. That's one down, Min-jae said with satisfaction. 2 to go, Victoria replied. But the CHEN takedown was just the beginning. Victoria had timed everything perfectly. While federal agents were raiding Chen's operation, she was already moving against the Reyes family. Part 7. The Takedown, Reyes. Elena Reyes was more difficult. Her power came from influence, from connections, from the web of corruption she'd spent decades building. You couldn't just raid her operation because her operation was the system itself. So Victoria decided to expose her. Publicly. Spectacularly. Reyes has been buying judges for 20 years, Victoria said, reviewing the evidence she'd compiled. She's fixed trials, buried investigations, protected criminals. But she's been careful. Everything's done through intermediaries, shell companies, untraceable payments. So how do we prove it? Min-jae asked. We don't have to prove it. We just have to make people believe it. Victoria pulled up a file on her laptop. I've been working with a journalist, Rebecca Torres, at the Times. She's been investigating judicial corruption for years. I'm going to give her everything we have on Reyes. Will she publish it? Without concrete proof. She will when I give her this. Victoria played a video file. It was security footage from a restaurant showing Elena Reyes meeting with Judge Harold Martinez. The audio was crystal clear, Reyes discussing a case, promising payment in exchange for a favorable ruling, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate the system. How did you get this? Min-jae asked, impressed. Reyes likes to conduct business at the same restaurant every week. Very predictable. I had someone install cameras. Victoria smiled. She never even noticed. The story broke on a Thursday morning, front page of the New York Times, corruption at the highest levels, how Elena Reyes bought the justice system. The article was devastating. It named names, showed receipts, included the video footage. By noon, 3 judges had resigned. By evening, the FBI had announced an investigation. By the next morning, Elena Reyes was in custody, charged with bribery, corruption, and racketeering. Victoria watched the news coverage from Juhoon's office, feeling a grim satisfaction. Her phone rang. It was Reyes calling from jail. You did this, Reyes hissed. You destroyed me. No, Victoria said calmly. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it. You're going to regret this. When I get out. You're not getting out. Not for a very long time. Victoria's voice was cold. You tried to kill my husband because he wanted to do the right thing. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? She hung up and turned to Min-jae. 2 down. Kane's going to know something's wrong, Min-jae warned. He's going to be on guard. Good, Victoria said. Let him be scared. It'll make the fall even sweeter. Part 8. The Takedown, Kane. Marcus Kane was the most dangerous of the 3 families. He was smart, ruthless, and paranoid. When Chen and Reyes fell within days of each other, he immediately went into hiding, surrounding himself with security, moving his money to accounts Victoria couldn't trace. But Victoria had anticipated this. She'd saved Kane for last specifically because she knew he'd be the hardest to take down. Kane's power is his money, she told Min-jae. But money is also his weakness. He's greedy. He can't resist a good deal. What are you thinking? Victoria smiled. I'm thinking we're going to offer him the deal of a lifetime. And when he takes it, we're going to destroy him. She set up a meeting through intermediaries, presenting herself as a desperate widow who needed to sell off Kang assets quickly. She offered Kane a portfolio of properties and businesses at a fraction of their value, too good to be true, but Kane's greed made him blind to the trap. The meeting took place in a private room at an exclusive club. Kane arrived with 4 bodyguards, his paranoia evident in every movement. "Mrs. Kang," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "I have to say, I'm surprised you wanted to meet. After what happened to CHEN and REYES. I'm a businesswoman, Mr. Kane. I don't have time for grudges." Victoria slid a folder across the table. "These are the properties I'm willing to sell. As you can see, the prices are very reasonable." Kane reviewed the documents, his eyes widening slightly. "This is generous." "Why?" "Because I'm pregnant and alone, and I don't want to run a criminal empire," Victoria said, letting her voice break slightly. "I just want to take care of my baby. I want out." It was the perfect lie because it contained just enough truth. She was pregnant. She did want to protect her baby, but she had no intention of getting out. She was just getting started. Kane studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, I'll take the deal. But I want everything transferred today. No delays." "Of course." Victoria pulled out a laptop. "We can do the transfers right now. I just need you to log into your accounts to receive the properties." This was the trap. The moment Kane logged into his accounts from Victoria's laptop, she would have access to everything. Every account, every holding, every dirty dollar. Kane hesitated, his paranoia warring with his greed. "Why don't you transfer them to my accounts?" "I'll give you the routing numbers." "Because I need to verify the funds are there," Victoria said smoothly. "I'm not handing over millions in assets without confirmation of payment." It was a reasonable request. Too reasonable to refuse without looking suspicious. Kane logged in. And in that moment, Victoria's team, a group of hackers Juhoon had kept on retainer, went to work. They cloned Kane's access, traced his accounts, and began the process of freezing and seizing everything he had. "There," Kane said, showing her the account balances. "Satisfied?" "Very," Victoria said. And then she smiled. "You know, Mr. Kane, you really should have better security on your accounts." Kane's expression changed. "What did you do?" "I just took everything you have. Every account, every asset, every dollar." Victoria stood, gathering her things. "The FBI will be here in about 5 minutes. I'd suggest you use that time to call a lawyer. You're going to need one." "You bit." Kane lunged across the table, but Min-jae was faster, stepping between them with a gun drawn. "I wouldn't," Min-jae said calmly. Kane's bodyguards moved forward, but the door burst open and federal agents flooded in, weapons drawn. "Marcus Kane, you're under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit murder." Victoria watched as they cuffed him, as they led him away, still shouting threats. She felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "It's done," Min-jae said quietly. "All 3 families. Destroyed." "Not quite," Victoria said. "There's one more thing I need to do." Part 9. The Fire. The warehouse district had been Chen's primary distribution center, the heart of his smuggling operation. Even with Chen in custody, his organization was still trying to operate, still trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Victoria decided to send a message. She stood in the center of the warehouse, surrounded by crates of illegal goods that would never reach their destinations. Min-jae and his team had already evacuated the area, had made sure no one would be hurt. "Are you sure about this?" Min-jae asked. Victoria looked around at the empire of corruption and crime, thought about everything these families had done, everyone they'd hurt. Thought about Juhoon lying in a hospital bed, fighting his way back to consciousness. "I'm sure," she said. She lit the match herself. The fire spread quickly, consuming everything in its path. Victoria stood outside and watched it burn, watched decades of criminal enterprise turn to ash and smoke. Her phone rang. It was the private facility. "Mrs. Kang, you need to come quickly. Your husband is waking up." Victoria's heart stopped. "I'm on my way." She turned to Min-jae. "It's time. Juhoon's waking up." They drove to Westchester at speeds that would have gotten them arrested if Victoria cared about such things. She burst into Juhoon's room to find doctors surrounding his bed, and there, his eyes were open. "Juhoon." She pushed past the doctors, taking his hand. "Baby, I'm here. I'm right here." His eyes found hers, and even though he was weak, even though he could barely speak, She saw recognition. Love. Relief. Victoria. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. Don't try to talk. Just rest. You're safe. You're going to be okay. Tears streamed down her face. I took care of everything. CHEN, REYES, Kang, they're all gone. They can't hurt us anymore. Juhoon's hand moved to her stomach, his eyes widening as he felt the swell there. Baby, Victoria said, crying and laughing at the same time. Our baby is growing perfectly. Strong and healthy, just like their father. The doctor cleared his throat. Mrs. Kang, he needs rest. But his prognosis is excellent. With physical therapy, he should make a full recovery. Victoria pressed her forehead against Juhoon's, feeling his breath on her face, feeling his hand on their child. We did it, she whispered. We survived. And now we get to live. Part 10, the renewal. 3 months later, Victoria went into labor. It was 2 weeks early, and she was in the middle of a meeting with the board of directors, her board now, the company she'd rebuilt from the ashes of the 3 families' destruction. She'd strengthened the Kang holdings into a formidable empire, something their child could be proud of. Mrs. Kang, one of the board members, looked concerned. Are you all right? Victoria felt the contraction, strong and unmistakable. She smiled. Gentlemen, I'm afraid we'll have to continue this meeting another time. I'm about to have a baby. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Juhoon was there. He'd been by her side every day since waking up, going through physical therapy, rebuilding his strength. He still walked with a slight limp, still had headaches sometimes, but he was alive. He was here. I can't believe this is happening, he said, holding her hand as another contraction hit. We're about to be parents. I know, Victoria gasped. I know. Are you ready? I've been ready since the moment you told me in the middle of 7th Avenue. Juhoon pressed a kiss to her forehead. I love you so much. You saved me. You saved all of us. We saved each other, Victoria corrected. The labor was long and difficult, but Victoria had faced down 3 criminal empires. She could handle childbirth. And when the doctor finally placed their daughter in her arms, when she looked down at that tiny, perfect face, she felt something shift in her chest. She's beautiful, Juhoon whispered, tears streaming down his face. She's perfect. She is, Victoria agreed. What should we name her? They discussed names for months, had lists and favorites and debates. But looking at their daughter now, Victoria knew exactly what her name should be. Hope, she said. Her name is Hope. Because that's what this baby represented. Hope for the future. Hope for a better world. Hope that they could build something good from the ashes of what had been destroyed. Juhoon nodded, pressing a kiss to Hope's forehead. Hope Kang, it's perfect. They spent the first night as a family in the hospital room, taking turns holding Hope, marveling at her tiny fingers and toes, her shock of dark hair, the way she gripped their fingers with surprising strength. She's going to be fierce, Juhoon said, just like her mother. And stubborn like her father, Victoria added with a smile. I still can't believe what you did, Juhoon said quietly. Taking down 3 families while pregnant, while I was in a coma. You're incredible. I did what I had to do to protect our family. Victoria looked up at him. They tried to take you from me. From us. I couldn't let them get away with that. You could have been killed. You and Hope both. But we weren't. We're here. We're safe. And now we get to raise our daughter in a world where she doesn't have to be afraid. Victoria's expression was fierce. That's worth any risk. Juhoon pulled her close, careful of the baby between them. I love you. I don't say it enough, but I love you more than anything. I know, Victoria said. I've always known. Epilogue, 6 months later. Victoria stood in the nursery of their penthouse, watching Hope sleep in her crib. 6 months old now, with Juhoon's eyes and Victoria's determination. She was already trying to crawl, already showing signs of the fierce personality her parents had predicted. Juhoon came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She's going to be trouble, he said fondly. Definitely, Victoria agreed. But she's our trouble. The city spread out below them, glittering in the evening light. The Kang Empire had been transformed, doubled in size, and focused on real estate development and international trade. The Riverside project had been completed properly, with full environmental cleanup, and was now a thriving community. CHEN was serving 20 years for smuggling and racketeering. REYES had been disbarred and was facing multiple corruption charges. Kane had lost everything and was awaiting trial for money laundering and conspiracy to commit murder. The families that had tried to destroy the Kangs were gone. And in their place, Victoria and Juhoon had built something better. Do you ever regret it? Juhoon asked. The violence, the revenge? Victoria thought about it for a moment. No, they tried to kill you. They would have killed others if we hadn't stopped them. I did what I had to do. You did more than that. You were magnificent. Juhoon turned her to face him. You saved me. You saved our family. You changed everything. We changed everything, Victoria corrected. Together. Hope stirred in her crib, making the small sounds that meant she'd be awake soon. Victoria went to pick her up, cradling their daughter against her chest. Hey, baby girl, she murmured. Did you have a good nap? Hope blinked up at her with those serious dark eyes, and Victoria felt her heart swell with love so intense it was almost painful. This was what mattered. Not the empire she'd destroyed or the enemy she'd defeated. This, her husband, her daughter, her family. This was what she'd fought for. What are you thinking? Juhoon asked, watching her with that soft expression he reserved only for her and Hope. I'm thinking that we won, Victoria said simply. They tried to break us, and instead, we became stronger. We built something beautiful from the ashes. We did, Juhoon agreed. He put his arms around both of them, and they stood there in the nursery, a family united by love and tested by fire. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. But inside this room, in this moment, there was only peace. Victoria Kang had destroyed 3 criminal empires while pregnant, had brought down men who thought themselves untouchable, had proven that underestimating a woman, especially a Kang woman, was a fatal mistake. But more than that, she'd protected her family. She'd fought for the people she loved. And she'd won. The Kang legacy would continue, but it would be different now. Better. Built on love and loyalty rather than fear and violence. Hope yawned and snuggled closer to her mother, and Victoria pressed a kiss to her daughter's head. I love you, she whispered. Both of you. More than anything in this world. We love you too, Juhoon said, his voice thick with emotion. Always. And in that moment, standing in the nursery with her husband and daughter, Victoria Kang knew that she had everything she'd ever wanted. Everything she'd ever fought for. She'd burned 3 empires to the ground. And from the ashes, she'd built something eternal. The end. If you like the story of Victoria and Juhoon, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching.